Hello, welcome to District Leadership Board Orientation. My name is Blake Bradford. I'm a district superintendent and I am Dean of the Appointive Cabinet. I'm also the author and co-author of some books on governance and decision-making in United Methodist churches and at the district and conference level. And today we're going to be sharing about the District Leadership Board and its functions. First of all, understand the district administrative structure is found in the discipline in the 600s or the 660s. And in that section, paragraph 661, a lot of allowance is given for an annual conference and district to organize the district governance in a way that is most helpful as it does the governance of the temporal affairs, the budgets, and just really planning how the district shall be run. And in 2018, we really simplified. We had a lot of district committees. We simplified those into our structures. We used that structure over 4 years. In 2022, the Arkansas United Methodist Church voted to further refine and simplify our structure even more. And so out of that, we have a district leadership board is the primary board that functions with several different hats on. As it governs the life of the district and works with the district superintendent. Now, I do want to share for those of you that may have been past members of the district leadership team or past structures of the district, I want to share a little bit. And first of all, there's some new roles. And one of the biggest changes in 2022 is that we divided up the work of the district trustees, which have that more governance role and a fiduciary and internal focus of managing the physical assets such as district offices, equipment, maybe a parsonage for your superintendent, the operating as a district board of directors as a legal basis. We separated that out from the district board of church location and building. And the reason is the district trustees are now part of this committee, the district leadership board. Meanwhile, the district board of church location and building, they have a really different focus. District trustees are more focused internally. I'm sitting in my district office right now. That's the focus of the district trustees, is the property of the endowments, the physical property, all that of the district. The district board of church location building's job is different. Its focus is external and strategic, focused on local church property. And the ministry, as you look out on the mission fields of the Arkansas Conference, the ministry needs of communities and growing communities and things like that, studying the potential of what's going on in throughout the district, and particularly as it contains issues of local church property, building programs, new church starts, that sort of thing. And we used to also have a district strategy team. And it overlapped so much with the district board of church location building. We reconnected that work of that former committee in with the district board of church location building. So there's a separate video just on the district board of church location building. You can watch that one as well if you wish, but that's a separate committee and it has a more external and strategic focus. Of course, and what we're going to be doing here in this session is really talking about the district leadership board. Now, on the slide you're looking at now, it's the board in sort of a goldenrod color. You see there next to it in green is the district board church location building. That's the other elected committee. The third one there is the district committee on ordained ministry. And its focus, is really about building clergy leadership. So you can just see on this one slide how the responsibilities and the work of each of the three primary district committees that are elected, they each have a very different role, and they each work within that area that's been well defined for them. Again, we're going to be focusing today on the district leadership board. Now, first, let's look at the composition of this board. And you might be watching some, you might be watching it as a group, as a committee. But if you're in the group, in the committee, you're watching it on the screen, you kind of look around the table, and then here's who is around the table as the district leadership board meets. First of all, you do have a district lay leader. They have a 4-year term. So we have that district lay leader. The rest of the positions are 1-year terms. So right off the bat, we have at-large members, 2 lay women, 2 lay men, and 2 clergy. Now, those 6 folks function as the legal board of trustees for your district. So the whole committee, all 11 people, are the district leadership board, but only 6 of those 11 fulfill the job of the district trustees. Now, district trustees, they need to be 18. There's rules and discipline, expectations about certain number of men and women and clergy. So we did that to fulfill all those disciplinary requirements. And so those 6 folks follow all that trustee work. We'll talk more about what that work looks like in a minute. Then you have 2 at-large members. For example, it could be, you may have a district treasurer or financial steward, maybe an associate district lay leader, maybe just 2 folks to try to create some more diversity within the district from maybe different sized churches or parts of the district and communities within the district or whatever, seeking to have a larger committee. And then we also have 2 members selected by the district superintendent. Now, you may wonder, this seems like a really odd mix for these 11 folks, and it may seem like that, but here's why. The district leadership board, if you notice, if you look at the list, they function as the district council, the district superintendency committee, the district trustees, district nominations, and finance. That is a lot of different jobs in the discipline that we've kind of stacked up in one committee. But in order to fulfill all the disciplinary requirements for membership, the most complicated committee to fulfill was the superintendency committee, which is paragraph 669.1. So to fulfill the 11-person requirements that's laid out in the book of discipline for that team, the way we did it is have this 11-person board with 6 of those serving as trustees. And that way, all the requirements of the book of discipline are kept in appropriately. Now, of course, in addition to these 11, the DS will be a part of the team. And also, the resident bishop is always ex officio. Usually that only comes into play if there's an expected change in superintendents. And so the bishop has a consultation meeting with the district leadership board, the same way that a DS, if there's going to be a change in a local church, a DS goes and has a consultation with staff parish, same sort of deal. The bishop will have a consultation meeting with the DLB to work on what the needs are for a superintendent. The district leadership board is elected at the district conference level. And again, everyone has a 1-year term that is renewable, with the exception of the district lay leader, which has a 4-year term by the discipline. Now, there is also an allowance for non-voting advisory members as needed. And of course, the committee can always have guests, but non-voting advisory members, I would guess, would look different in every district based upon the needs of the district, what's going on maybe in a particular season or a particular cycle of the district's work, or maybe you have just certain people you want around the table for some of the meetings. That's great. You have some flexibility there. Remember, they are non-voting, they are advisory, and the folks that could be involved in that could be anyone in the district, or it could be some specialists, like maybe you have a youth coordinator, or every district has a disaster response coordinator. Maybe you want that person to show up just to know what's going on around the district. Maybe your 200,000 more reasons, or lay speaking ministries. Every district also has a district chancellor. They might be an ongoing member. Maybe they attend every time you meet, and maybe they come as needed. Either way, that might be another non-voting advisory member. You could also include, if you wish, the conference committees that have district so-called reps, or district folks as they're selecting the conference committee. Maybe they have someone that is, for example, from the Northwest District representing on that committee. Maybe you want that person from that conference committee on, maybe you don't. I do want to say, when thinking about these non-voting advisory members, I know part of us wants, just have everyone at the table. But the issue to remember is this: every person added to around the table makes the conversation more complex. And it could be complex in a way that's not helpful because it'll get us distracted. And so one of the great things about having simplified structure is that you can have a small team do the work and not use up the time and energy of a lot of other people in the governance work, but instead unleash folks that are engaged in ministry, unleash them to be in ministry, let them do district ministries and not be expected to show up at a whole lot of meetings. One thing to think about this as you think about the responsibilities of the committee is that we're not really planning ministry events at the district leadership board. I mean, the district leadership board is not going to be planning, for example, a district youth gathering. That's going to be the youth coordinator working with maybe youth ministers and pastors and engaged laity from around the district. The district leadership board's job on that is probably limited to making sure that there is funding available for the youth coordinator to do what they do, and maybe to have access to communication systems. Really, that might be the limit of their job. Really, we're really unleashing more people into ministry. And that's why there's not a really big board trying to make all these decisions about every item, but instead focus again on governance work. So let's talk about that governance work. What are the leadership board responsibilities? So let's look at this in more detail. First of all, you'll notice that there are different passages of the discipline quoted at the top of the slide. And this is all the district committees listed in the discipline that fall under, that their work, their responsibilities falls under the district leadership board. You have your district council, which might be kind of like a church council, it's a district council, our committees on ministries or whatever, formally that work in former committees or something in here. District finances, nominations, the district committee on superintendency, and district trustees. So all those paragraph numbers, all those responsibilities listed, all that falls under your district leadership board. You'll note that the district leadership board is amenable to the district conference. We meet every spring. It's also amenable to annual conference. It'll report annually to the district conference. And again, I know I repeat myself here, but the focus of the district leadership board is governance. And when I say that, what I mean is the stewardship of God's resources in the district office, the district superintendency, supporting those ministries, but it's really the stewardship of God's resources in the district owned resources, for example. Now, the district leadership board may assign certain responsibilities to other committees. For instance, the district board church location building may be assigned the responsibility of, in addition to other work, okay, district leadership board says to district board church location building, hey, your job strategy, we assign you the responsibility and authority to handle any grant money. Some districts have grants and endowments for grants, some do not. Some have a mission apportionment in addition to the tithe. That's fine. The district leadership board's job would be to organize that funding and then assign responsibility. So you may assign the district board church location building a responsibility for grants. You may include, as I said before, key district coordinators as advisory members, district leadership board to support collaboration and such, and maybe have larger connections so conference committees work better. That's fine. Remember, that's more of an as needed basis than a regular expectation. Another operating function is, and I'll get more of this in a moment, we really recommend that you use a function-based agenda to stay on focus. In other words, and you'll see in a moment, different functions of the board, let them exist, those functions, in other words, superintendency, trustees, let them, those functional responsibilities exist as your agenda items and work them one at a time. You'll see in a moment. The last thing I'll say to operate as a district leadership board we're going to talk about as well is how to use guiding principles to create workflows for the work with clear accountability, clear boundaries. What workflows I mean here in guiding principles mean that the board doesn't have to gather and meet and vote for every day-to-day task but instead there's some boundaries set up, such as spending limits or expectations around finance, things like that, so that the DS, the district administrator, can just go about the ministry. So like the district youth coordinator can just do their thing, and within those limits, they're allowed to do that work. And you set up these guiding principles so it's sort of on autopilot, and they don't have to come back to the board with every question. You're sort of unleashing folks to do the ministry they've been called and sent to do. Now, as you think about your work as a district leadership board, we have an expectation that you'll have quarterly regular meetings. Now, you may have some special meetings on certain topics, or maybe a work group on different things, but generally speaking, the district leadership board meets quarterly. And in addition to specific stuff around the function-based agenda you'll see in a minute, there are certain items that you emphasize in each of the quarterly meetings. For example, in the summer, the season you're probably watching this video now, you have an organization meeting with a new district leadership board. And in that organization meeting, what you do is you elect a trustee chair. Now, that may be your board chair, and that's fine. That person can be both, but it's required legally at the first meeting of the district trustees to elect a trustee chair. Now, remember, the person you elect will have to be one of those 6 folks that are members of the board that are with the notation that they are trustees. So one of the 6 will be elected the chair for that year. In the fall, you have an in-gathering planning, maybe consultation with the DS. Most DSs have had summer check-ins with clergy, have maybe traveled around the district in strategic leadership gatherings, maybe talked about the district-wide charge conference, whatever. Have a conversation with your DS about what their experiences have been. Maybe they can give you a big picture view and ask some questions and get some feedback from the DS and offer feedback and really have that good time of consultation, such as a pastor might have with their staff parish committee. The winter meeting would be, the job of that is to plan the prospective budget recommendation for the district, begin some district nominations. We have a whole process for that. So kind of get those pieces in place and deadlines, and do district conference planning. Begin thinking about, okay, what do we want to make sure we cover in our district conference? So that's a special area of focus. In the spring, you finalize nominations, put a bow on that one, and then complete any district conference planning that you have. Now, when you're thinking about that function-based agenda, here's what I mean by that. I know I've mentioned it several times. First of all, every session needs to have times of prayer, of spiritual formation, and learning. So we in the Arkansas Conference often use the L3 model for our meetings: love, learn, lead. So for the love and the learn, make sure you include those prayer, spiritual formation, learning pieces. And then for the lead part of the agenda, and this may be in addition to those seasonal topics, but you can separate out the agenda with 4 major categories of items. And you may want to, in your agenda, just write these 4 down, 4 areas of responsibility under the lead section: love, learn, lead. And lead have these 4 sections, and that will cover most of your board's work in that meeting. Now, you may have something new and additional. It's fine, you can add it, but these 4 areas are your primary work areas, and they're primary kind of containers for your agenda items. So let's start with these. First, your fiduciary work. Here's what I mean by that. Trustees, management of any district-owned endowments, and looking at what's your quarterly finances you're getting from the conference office on the district. To kind of look back up at the trustee section, we're going to dive deep on that one. Parsonage office assets. That's really what you're doing there. So that's fiduciary work, is that work like that. Then you have your resources and your coordination of district teams and boards. Now, again, you may assign some responsibilities to district leadership board. You may the district board certification building, you may get a report from them on like grant making they've done or something. You can encourage ministry teams such as an in-gathering or a DCYM, encourage other ministries such as disaster response. It could be hearing from them, and you may divide it up over the years. So once you hear from every team, and that way the board has some accountability for the money they set aside for these ministries or the effort they assist in these ministries. So you may want to, just take all these and split it out over years. One way to accomplish that, but in some ways, just make sure you're resourcing, coordinating that work. Another item, container really for your functions is nominations work. And nominations is a year-round business. You may think, oh, it only happens in the spring right for conference. Not really. So all the time you need to tend to the future membership of the committee and do district leadership development. For instance, if you might be transitioning from one DCYM or something, maybe the DS needs some feedback around a new youth coordinator or disaster response coordinator. Maybe you need to be thinking now about, okay, what are our needs going to be as we're looking ahead for our own board as we do our nominations work. Now, of course, the closer you get to spring, the more real things get, and you'll have to have some talk about, okay, let's make sure that we're putting out our application process appropriately and on time, so we can get information from as many people as possible about who'd like to serve in district roles or maybe serve as an at-large lay member annual conference. And then the nominations work, at the very end, right before district conference, what you're doing is organizing, making sure your list is correct and everyone's been contacted. The last item, the last container on the agenda I have here is the executive session. You're encouraged every time in your meeting, you need to operate at some point in time solely as the superintendency committee. Now, what I mean by that is you are serving like the staff parish for the district staff and the district superintendent. So you'll need to move to an executive session, and that means you do a different kind of note taking. It might be a separate executive session notes, maybe not, depending on the nature of the conversation. You excuse anyone who's not a member of the committee. So those non-voting advisory members are excused from the team and say, thank you so much for your service. We're going to move to executive session now. And so you're excused. And any guests are also excused because you need to do superintendency time. And again, it's like the SPRC work in a local church. And that way you can give any feedback with your superintendent and talk about staff the way you need to, or staff arrangements. Just do that work that like a staff parish would do. So that's an executive session piece that you would hold at the end of the meeting. And then of course you close with closing prayer and such. So this function-based agenda, if you think of it as, starting out with your prayer, spiritual formation, learning, and then the rest of the agenda, almost every time you meet, can just have these 4 items as containers. And underneath those 4 items, you can take this list, but okay, here's some particular piece of business we need to do for each item. Some of it you won't see but once a year. You may not be looking at your endowments every time you meet. Maybe you are. You can, but maybe it's just a once a year look at your endowment system and your policy, make sure all's well, that kind of thing. So you can take this agenda, and that way, if that's your template, then everyone will get really used to how businesses run at the district leadership board level. Now, I'm going to divide some of this up, and we're going to isolate some of these particular unique tasks that we have. First of all, the district leadership board in its job as district trustees. Again, the district leadership board is responsible to steward district property. All district property, of course, is held in trust for the Arkansas Conference. And in the Arkansas United Methodist Church, districts are operated as extensions of the conference. So we are really run that way here, some more than other conferences. For instance, all of our finances run through the conference office. A good example of that. The district leadership board is responsible for the upkeep of the district parsonage. You might decide to assign one trustee to be the primary point of contact for parsonage related matters. Doesn't have to be the chair for everything. You could say, maybe, if one person on your committee really loves doing that, maybe they've done it in local church, maybe there's someone who's local to wherever the district office is, members from all over the district, maybe someone local perhaps could be that primary point of contact. And so parsonage related matters might shuffle all through that one person, which could be really helpful in clarifying things. The district trustees are governing officers. And remember, every time you do trustee work, only those 6 need to vote. Part of that might be, if you're trying to, sell district property or sign a contract or something like that. In addition, as governing officers, if your district happens to be a nonprofit organization incorporated with the state, there's an annual report that's filled out. It might be filled out by your DS and DA, but those 6 trustees have to be listed. But it's your job to make sure, to ensure that annual reporting is appropriately done with the Secretary of State's office. The last item I have here for district trustees is the responsibility around district endowments and accounts. And I've seen that in different ways in different districts. And you might have a few, often held at the Methodist Foundation for Arkansas. You can make sure policies are set up to administer the funds. You may have some money like from a parsonage fund. If you don't have a parsonage, it may be part of that income, maybe subsidizing your housing allowance for your superintendent or something. You can, work out details like that. The district, again, may also assign grant making and grant oversight authority for endowed funds to another group, such as the district board of church location building. That's really important, particularly if you have any development grants out of endowments on new starts, fresh expressions, or church development funds. That grant making authority on those kind of endowment funds really needs to happen out of the district board church location building. That falls really more into their job. And therefore the district leadership board's job is to hold the other board accountable. Here's how much money you have, you kind of frame it out of the income. You can work on that. And then you might expect a report from that other board. Here's how we spent the money that was budgeted. So that's the trustee segment. In addition, you also have the district leadership board in its service as the district superintendency committee. And as I said, in the ARUMC, districts are operated extensions of the conference. So that also means office staff, district office staff are annual conference employees. We have a conference employee handbook. It's been built by the Council of Finance Administration. However, it's the role of on the Committee on District Superintendency, the district leadership board, in other words, to quote, advocate for adequate budget support services for the DS, such as adequate secretarial support, travel, continuing ed, and parsonage needs. So you do have a role in this, and oftentimes the district leadership board really services as that first point of contact along the superintendent for district staff. Another way you might be having if there's like a special gift for your DA, that's our special collection for Christmas or something, or any of those other kind of functions that would normally happen out of a staff parish committee and working with the staff, all that would fall under your district leadership board. So make sure you're fulfilling those appropriate relational responsibilities. And last, the consultation. The district leadership board serves as in an advisory relationship with the bishop for the purposes of appraisal and consultation of the superintendent. So those are the different ways the DLB serves as the district superintendency committee. Now, I mentioned much earlier in this talk about guiding principles. And the reason I shared that, and this is something I advocate for local churches as well, the district leadership board can use guiding principles to reduce the number of decisions the body has to make by just creating a principle that gives permission for leaders to make decisions. For instance, you could have a guiding principle that if there is something that breaks in the parsonage and it costs, up to whatever this amount you set, they can just call a vendor, they can call a plumber, they can call an electrician, get that fixed. If it costs between, this amount and this amount, maybe they need to talk to the trustee contact or the chair. Maybe if it's even higher, well, that might get in the territory where you might need 3 bids and it needs a full board approval. You can set it up as a tiered system so that everyone knows once you hit certain points in the system, you need different levels of approval and maybe also, again, different bids. You may have a certain company designated as, well, that's going to be our standard plumber if something breaks in the office or something breaks in the parsonage. Great. But once you hit a certain amount, it might be, well, that might be the plumber we go with on this job, but we're going to have 3 bids before we dive in on this one. So you go get your bids. You can always set that up. And the thing about a guiding principle is the board sets those. The board can also change them at any time because it's board created principles. And so if you find it's not quite working for you, just tweak the guiding principle. Another example is on finances, spending money, not just on like property, but for example, you may give clearance for the district youth coordinator. They are allowed to spend their budget the way they are deemed necessary for the year. And they don't need to spend more, but you give them the amount, you say you have permission to spend this money. And we don't need you to come back to us every time you're going to want to write a check or set up an event. We trust you. You're in that job. Here's your budget. That's an example of a guiding principle. Now, another one might be you can spend up to this amount of it. And then if you're going to spend more, you need to talk to the DS or the lay leader or whoever's designated before you decide to spend over that amount in one fell swoop. Those are all examples of guiding principles. Now, what I'd like to share here at the end is really just a thank you. I join with the other superintendents in thanking you for your service. We really appreciate your work for the districts and your role on the district leadership board. This is a role of oversight and stewardship. We really need your help, and we really appreciate it that you are investing your time to help us serve God well as we lead the churches in each of our districts. Thank you so much, and you are a blessing to the entire Arkansas Conference. I hope this orientation has assisted you, and I do encourage you to continue to watch this video. We have some downloadable resources, and if you need any help along the way, please ask your district superintendent.